What if I told you that the words you choose every day are not just expressions, but actual keys capable of opening or closing doors in your life? Has this ever happened to you, where something you said in a moment of distraction shifted the course of an entire relationship, an opportunity, or even your own self-belief? We often underestimate the power of language, but words are more than sounds. They are seeds that either nourish peace or plant unrest. And just as importantly, the way you use silence, how you protect your plans, guard your focus, and shield your energy determines whether those seeds grow strong or are trampled before they ever take root. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Think about it. When you speak too soon, share too much, or expose your dreams before they've taken form, haven't you noticed how easily outside opinions, doubts, or even envy can drain your strength? Yet, when you build quietly, when your plans are whispers known only to your own determination, you preserve not only your direction, but also your peace. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because silence is not emptiness. Silence is a shield, a fertile ground where focus grows. Stay with me until the end, because what I'll share may reshape the way you look at both your words and your wounds. And speaking of wounds, have you ever carried pain so sharp it felt like it had no purpose, no lesson, nothing but weight? Here lies another hidden truth. Pain itself is raw material. It doesn't arrive to break you, but to shape you. If you remain present, if you resist the urge to run from it, pain transforms. It becomes skill, patience, compassion, a strength you couldn't have built without first being broken open. Imagine for a moment how your deepest scars might actually be blueprints for your greatest abilities. Has this happened to you, where an old hardship later revealed itself as the very training ground for resilience? The key is not in avoiding wounds, but in alchemizing them into wisdom. Words, silence, wounds, wisdom, each is a thread woven into the same fabric. When you learn to choose your words like carefully selected keys, when you guard your plans in quiet persistence, and when you embrace your wounds not as punishments, but as teachers, you step into a new kind of power. A power that doesn't shout, but resonates. A power that doesn't crumble in storms, but gathers strength from them. This isn't about denial of difficulty. It's about mastering the way you respond through speech, through silence, and through the lessons of pain. So I ask you again, what doors are your words opening? What treasures are your silences protecting? And what wisdom are your wounds quietly offering, waiting for you to claim it? Stay close, because in the next part, we'll dive deeper into how these principles not only protect your peace, but also unlock levels of focus, confidence, and growth that few ever tap into. If reflections like these inspire you, make sure to subscribe so you can always come back to a space where clarity, strength, and transformation are waiting for you. Excuses have a way of sounding reasonable in the moment. They whisper to you that it's too late, that you're too tired, that tomorrow will be a better day to start. They soften the weight of responsibility for a short while. But what they really do is steal from your future. Every excuse you accept makes today feel lighter, but it makes tomorrow heavier. Discipline, on the other hand, does the opposite. It feels demanding now, sometimes uncomfortable, but it frees you later. It's the hidden truth behind every transformation story you admire. Someone chose discipline over comfort, consistency over justification. That's what flips the script of life. And it's not about perfection. It's about persistence. The mindset shifts when you realize that self-discipline is not a punishment. It's actually a form of self-respect. It's you deciding that your goals matter more than the small cravings, the quick distractions, or the easy way out. But here's the revelation that often gets overlooked. Everything worth mastering begins in discomfort. The first step is clumsy. The first attempt feels awkward, and the fear of not being good enough looms over you. Yet this is exactly where the seed of growth is planted. Everything is hard before it's easy, and those who keep walking through the difficulty are the ones who eventually look effortless. Think of any skill you admire behind the scenes. there are countless hours of mistakes, corrections, and practice. What you see as talent is often just discipline wrapped in patience. The journey doesn't reward the one who avoids failure. It rewards the one who stumbles, adjusts, and continues. It's humbling, yes, but that humility is what shapes real strength. And when you remember this, the fear of starting becomes less intimidating because you understand that awkwardness is not a sign you're failing. It's proof you're in motion. There's another part of this process that requires awareness: your emotions. How many times have you made a decision in the heat of anger or the fog of sadness, only to regret it once the storm passed? Feelings are powerful, but they are also temporary. They rise like waves and crash just as quickly, and if you let them steer your choices, you'll be carried away by currents you didn't intend to follow. True clarity comes when you let emotions pass, like weather shifting across the sky, and only then choose your direction. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between being controlled by impulses and acting with intention. This doesn't mean you should suppress your feelings. They are part of your humanity. It means recognizing their temporary nature and deciding not to give them the driver's seat. Calm is where wisdom hides, and finding calm before making decisions protects you from paths you never meant to take. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you start connecting discipline, practice, and emotional control, something profound happens. You realize they are not separate lessons, but parts of the same foundation. Discipline gives you consistency. Practice transforms that consistency into skill, and emotional stability ensures that the choices guiding both are clear and steady. Together, they form the backbone of any lasting transformation. They shape not only what you do, but who you become in the process. And once this awareness clicks, you begin to see that the journey itself is the revelation that behind the struggles, the doubts, and the quiet moments of perseverance lies the version of yourself you've been trying to uncover. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "This makes sense to me," because every time you put it into words, you strengthen the mindset you're building, and you'll see you're not alone on this path. Happiness isn't something that falls from the sky or arrives as a sudden gift wrapped in luck. It's not found waiting at the end of some distant road, and it's certainly not dependent on circumstances alone. Happiness is a construction, a deliberate craft you build day after day with the small bricks of choice and consistency. Think about how much of it lies in details. Most people overlook restful sleep, conscious breathing, a sense of order in the spaces around you, and the little acts that give meaning to the ordinary. These elements may seem insignificant in isolation, but together they form the foundation of a life that feels stable, rooted, and quietly fulfilling. The hidden truth is that happiness is not about chasing intensity. It's about cultivating balance. And behind the scenes of every so-called lucky or content person, there is usually a routine of simple disciplines, repeated with care. Yet there's something else that silently erodes this possibility: the comfort zone. At first, it feels safe, protective, even pleasant. But have you noticed how the longer you stay there, the smaller it gets? The comfort zone does not expand with you. It shrinks your possibilities until your dreams no longer have space to grow. It is like trying to plant flowers on concrete. No matter how much you water them, they won't take root. Growth demands discomfort, and dreams require movement beyond the padded path. Every great transformation has a moment of decision, a leap into uncertainty, a step where fear and faith meet. And while the risk feels sharp, the cost of never moving is even greater. Because what you don't challenge eventually controls you, and what you avoid becomes the invisible wall between you and the life you want to create. The journey out of the comfort zone is not just about ambition. It's about discovering who you are when the familiar falls away. It's the behind-the-scenes reality of resilience. You meet parts of yourself you didn't know existed. Strengths hidden beneath hesitation, courage revealed in the middle of doubt. And with each small victory, the mindset shifts. You begin to understand that fear was never the enemy. It was a compass pointing toward the very places you needed to grow. The impact of this shift ripples through everything: how you see challenges, how you handle uncertainty, and how you measure what truly matters. And then comes the test that everyone eventually faces: maintaining a positive attitude in the middle of negative situations. It's easy to smile when life is soft and cooperative, but the real transformation happens when you can hold your center in the storm. Keeping a clear mind under pressure is not denial, it's strategy. It means refusing to let chaos outside dictate the state of your inner world. When you achieve this, you win twice. Once on the inside, where your peace remains intact, and once on the outside, where your actions are guided by clarity instead of panic. It's a revelation many discover only after being forced through hardship, but it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose now to cultivate the discipline of presence, to practice responding instead of reacting, to see problems not as permanent punishments, but as temporary teachers. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you combine the intentional building of happiness, the courage to leave the shrinking comfort zone, and the strength of a stable mindset in hard times, you unlock a completely new way of living. It's not just about surviving challenges. It's about turning every choice, every challenge, and every change into material for growth. And that is the hidden architecture of a fulfilling life, an architecture most people overlook because they're too busy chasing what looks shiny instead of cultivating what actually lasts. If this strikes a chord with you, write in the comments, "I'm also on this path." By putting it into words, you anchor the commitment in your own mind and inspire others who are walking through the same journey of building, stretching, and standing strong. Focus is like a hidden lens that sharpens everything around you. When you truly decide to direct your attention toward a goal, it's as if the mind begins to sketch invisible maps, pathways that you couldn't see before. This isn't magic, it's clarity. Most people spend so much time scattering their energy across distractions that they never realize how powerful concentrated attention really is. The moment you believe there is a way forward, your brain begins to assemble the steps, connect the dots, and notice the opportunities that were already there, but drowned out by noise. It's a revelation that changes everything. Opportunities are rarely absent. They are simply overlooked by an unfocused mind. Behind the scenes of any great achievement lies this principle: focus reveals doors, even in walls that once seemed solid. But here is where another truth emerges. You cannot wait for the perfect mood to fuel your focus. If you train only when you feel like it, your growth will always be at the mercy of fleeting emotions. Strong emotions can be overwhelming, but they don't demand equally strong reactions. The hidden strength lies in training your attention, not your mood. It's discipline of the mind that allows your heart to eventually follow. Think of it as building a mental muscle. The more you exercise focus, the less dependent you become on momentary feelings. Over time, this practice rewires your mindset, giving you control over what once controlled you. The impact of this shift is enormous. Instead of being dragged around by the weight of moods, you begin to carry them with steadiness, navigating them without losing direction. Now, imagine pairing this trained focus with courage. Confidence doesn't appear suddenly like a gift. It is carved gradually, every time you decide to face fear instead of retreating. Fear has a way of magnifying itself in your imagination. It grows larger in thought than it ever is in reality. Yet every time you walk through a small fear, you expand the edges of your world. The conversation you once avoided becomes easier. A risk you once resisted becomes manageable. A challenge that once paralyzed you turns into a lesson you can carry. This is how confidence is built, not by pretending fear doesn't exist, but by walking alongside it, proving to yourself again and again that it cannot define you. Each time you step forward, the fear shrinks and your life grows. What's fascinating is how these three elements: focus, emotional discipline, and courage are interconnected. They form a cycle of transformation that keeps reinforcing itself. Focus shows you the way. Emotional discipline keeps you steady on the path, and courage pushes you beyond the borders of what you thought possible. It's a journey that unfolds not in dramatic leaps, but in small, consistent steps, each one shaping your mindset and revealing truths about your potential that you might have never dared to imagine. This is the kind of behind-the-scenes reality that few talk about because it doesn't always look glamorous, but its impact is undeniable. It's in the quiet choices, the hidden victories, and the inner decisions that no one else sees where your true transformation begins. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once you understand how these forces interact, you begin to realize that growth isn't about waiting for the right moment. It's about creating it with intention, clarity, and courage. And it's in this delicate balance between thought, feeling, and action that life starts to open up in unexpected ways, leading you toward opportunities you didn't even know were possible. If this spoke to you, write in the comments, "I choose focus." Putting it into words will anchor the commitment in your own mind and remind you later that clarity, discipline, and courage are decisions you can return to every single day. Time is the only wealth that cannot be replaced, borrowed, or reclaimed once it slips away. Yet so many people treat attention as the main currency, chasing likes, views, and distractions, while the hours of their own life vanish unnoticed. The hidden truth is that attention without control of time is empty, but when you value your time above all else, everything shifts. Investing it in deep work creates progress. That compounds, offering results no surface-level effort could ever provide. Giving it to real rest restores your body and mind, making you stronger for the next challenge. Sharing it with people who uplift you multiplies joy in ways no material possession ever could. Behind the scenes of every fulfilled life is someone who learned to treat time as sacred, someone who understood that where the hours go, the destiny follows. But life will always test how much you value that time by throwing problems in your path. Many see them as stop signs, reasons to turn back, proof that maybe the road isn't meant for them. Yet, problems are rarely punishments. They are guides pointing directly to the skills, knowledge, or perspective you're missing. If you pause and pay attention, you'll see that every obstacle carries within it a hidden map to growth. A challenge with your work might reveal a weakness in focus. A conflict in your relationships may highlight the need for better communication. Even failures, painful as they are, leave behind revelations about where you can adapt and rise stronger. The impact of this shift in mindset is powerful. Instead of fearing problems, you begin to see them as teachers. Each one is part of your journey, not an interruption to it. And while you navigate both time and problems, there is a voice that constantly shapes the way you see yourself. Your self-talk is the unseen dialogue that builds or breaks your self-respect. If you speak to yourself with criticism sharper than any enemy could deliver, you cut your own potential before it has a chance to grow. But if you speak like a trusted mentor, firm yet compassionate, you plant seeds of resilience and strength in your own mind. Guarding your self-talk is as important as guarding your schedule, because it determines the quality of the decisions you make. Respect yourself in thought, and you'll naturally demand respect in action, not only from others, but also from your own habits. This is where transformation begins behind the scenes, in the words you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when time, problems, and self-respect align, you begin to live with a clarity that is rare. You stop wasting hours on distractions that don't matter. You stop running from difficulties that are actually guiding you. And you stop accepting the poison of negative self-talk that weakens your foundation. The result is a life built, not on chance, but on intentional life, where every moment feels like it carries weight, purpose, and momentum. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "Time is my wealth." By putting it into words, you remind yourself of the value you hold in your own hands and inspire others to reflect on how they're spending the most precious resource they'll ever have. There comes a moment in every journey where the weight of yesterday becomes too heavy to carry forward. We cling to old mistakes, replay past conversations, hold on to regrets as if keeping them close could somehow change their outcome. But the hidden truth is simple. You cannot grasp tomorrow if your hands are full of yesterday. Letting go is not forgetting. It is releasing the grip that keeps you stuck in a loop. When you free yourself from what has already passed, you make space for what is still to come. Transformation often begins in this quiet, almost invisible act of surrender, where you decide that the past no longer dictates the future. And in that decision, you discover that moving forward feels less like running and more like stepping into air that finally feels lighter. The next revelation is that opportunities rarely wait. Life has a way of presenting doors that open only for a moment, and if you hesitate too long, they close as quietly as they appeared. Risk is uncomfortable, yes, but missing the chance is far more costly. Behind the scenes of every story of success is a moment where someone took the step before they felt fully ready. They understood that opportunity doesn't argue, it doesn't plead, it doesn't return out of pity, it knocks, and then it moves on. To risk is to acknowledge that the unknown carries both fear and possibility, but only one of them has the power to shape you. Fear will shrink you. Possibility will stretch you. And every time you choose to step through the uncertain door, you claim a larger life than the one you had before. But in this dance between letting go of the past and daring to step into the unknown, another truth emerges. Not everything can or should be changed. Accepting what is doesn't mean giving up. It means recognizing reality with clarity, without denial or illusion. Some things simply are, and fighting them wastes the energy you need to transform what truly can be altered. Serenity comes from this balance, the acceptance of the immovable, the courage to shift the movable, and the wisdom to know which is which. This balance is not just philosophy. It is a practical tool for decision-making. It saves you from scattering your focus on battles that don't matter, and frees you to invest deeply where your actions can create genuine impact. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you connect release, risk, and acceptance, something profound takes shape. You begin to see that your journey isn't about controlling every detail, but about directing your energy where it creates transformation. You stop clinging to what no longer serves you. You start stepping into doors that expand your path, and you conserve your strength for the changes that actually shift your reality. This is where growth stops being an abstract idea and starts becoming a lived experience. It's the hidden architecture behind resilience, the unspoken structure that allows you to keep moving, even when the road bends in ways you didn't expect. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I release to grow." By putting it into words, you anchor the decision not only in your thoughts, but in your actions, reminding yourself that freedom begins where unnecessary weight ends. Dreams are powerful, but without structure, they become like clouds, beautiful to look at, impossible to hold, and constantly drifting away. It's easy to say you want change, but unless you anchor that vision with a plan, it remains a wish suspended in air. A plan is not about rigidity. It's about clarity. It's giving shape to what would otherwise dissolve. When you set dates, define steps, and measure your progress, you transform vague desire into a tangible journey. Behind the scenes of every breakthrough is this hidden truth. Success is less about grand ambition and more about the daily architecture of small, consistent moves. The mindset shifts when you stop waiting for the right time and start creating the right structure. Suddenly, what once felt distant becomes something you can touch, piece by piece. And once you begin to act on those structured steps, something extraordinary happens. You start creating memories that replace untouched wishes. Think of the difference between someone who spends years saying, "One day I'll travel, write, build, create," and someone who takes the imperfect first step, then another and another. The first person collects unfulfilled wishes. The second collects stories. And those stories carry weight, not just in the external achievements, but in the internal transformation they create. Each experience reshapes you, adding depth, resilience, and wisdom that no dream left untouched could ever provide. Trading someday for done is not just about ticking goals off a list, it's about living fully, refusing to leave your potential in the shadows of hesitation. The impact of this decision stretches across your entire life, because you begin to see that the real regret is not in failing, but in never starting. This is why creating your future is not a matter of chance, but of choice. don't predict the path by wishing harder. You predict it by paving it with consistent action. Every step you take is an investment in the person you're becoming, and those steps accumulate until they create momentum that feels almost unstoppable. Consistency is the only oracle that truly works. It's not glamorous, not dramatic, and often not noticed by others, but behind the scenes, it builds a foundation so strong that even setbacks cannot erase it. The hidden truth is that your future is not waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be built. And that building is not done in giant leaps, but in deliberate, often quiet choices repeated over time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you align planning, action, and consistency, you start to realize that life itself bends toward intention. It is no longer about hoping to stumble into meaning. It's about creating meaning with your own hands. You stop watching from the sidelines of your own journey and step fully into the role of author, builder, and architect of your days. That's when the revelations come, not in sudden flashes, but in the steady unfolding of a life that reflects the decisions you've made with courage and clarity. If this speaks to you, write in the comments, "I choose action," because declaring it reinforces the mindset, reminds you of the hidden truth we often forget, that the future isn't given. It's built step by step by those willing to turn dreams into structure and wishes into lived experience. Dreams are powerful, but without structure, they become like clouds, beautiful to look at, impossible to hold, and constantly drifting away. It's easy to say you want change, but unless you anchor that vision with a plan, it remains a wish suspended in air. A plan is not about rigidity. It's about clarity. It's giving shape to what would otherwise dissolve. When you set dates, define steps, and measure your progress, you transform vague desire into a tangible journey. Behind the scenes of every breakthrough is this hidden truth. Success is less about grand ambition and more about the daily architecture of small, consistent moves. The mindset shifts when you stop waiting for the right time and start creating the right structure. Suddenly, what once felt distant becomes something you can touch, piece by piece. And once you begin to act on those structured steps, something extraordinary happens. You start creating memories that replace untouched wishes. Think of the difference between someone who spends years saying, "One day I'll travel, write, build, create," and someone who takes the imperfect first step, then another and another. The first person collects unfulfilled wishes. The second collects stories. And those stories carry weight, not just in the external achievements, but in the internal transformation they create. Each experience reshapes you, adding depth, resilience, and wisdom that no dream left untouched could ever provide. Trading someday for done is not just about ticking goals off a list. It's about living fully, refusing to leave your potential in the shadows of hesitation. The impact of this decision stretches across your entire life because you begin to see that the real regret is not in failing, but in never starting. This is why creating your future is not a matter of chance, but of choice. You don't predict the path by wishing harder. You predict it by paving it with consistent action. Every step you take is an investment in the person you're becoming, and those steps accumulate until they create momentum that feels almost unstoppable. Consistency is the only oracle that truly works. It's not glamorous, not dramatic, and often not noticed by others. But behind the scenes, it builds a foundation so strong that even setbacks cannot erase it. The hidden truth is that your future is not waiting to be discovered. It's waiting to be built. And that building is not done in giant leaps, but in deliberate, often quiet choices repeated over time. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you align planning, action, and consistency, you start to realize that life itself bends toward intention. It is no longer about hoping to stumble into meaning. It's about creating meaning with your own hands. You stop watching from the sidelines of your own journey and step fully into the role of author, builder, and architect of your days. That's when the revelations come, not in sudden flashes, but in the steady unfolding of a life that reflects the decisions you've made with courage and clarity. If this speaks to you, write in the comments, I choose action, because declaring it reinforces the mindset, reminds you of the hidden truth we often forget, that the future isn't given. It's built step by step by those willing to turn dreams into structure and wishes into lived experience. Pain has a way of convincing us that it is permanent, that the sting we feel now will linger forever. But pain is not meant to be carried endlessly. It is meant to be transformed. The bruise fades, the skin heals, yet what remains is the lesson, the resilience, the deeper strength that would never have emerged without the wound. This is the hidden truth. Strength does not come from avoiding pain, but from using it well. Every hardship becomes a forge where your character is refined. And if you choose to carry the lesson instead of the wound, you walk lighter, wiser, and more capable of facing the next challenge. Behind the scenes of those who appear unshakable, there are countless scars, each one a quiet teacher that shaped their mindset and expanded their capacity to endure. And in this process of growth, authenticity becomes essential. To be yourself in a world constantly pressuring you to conform is not an easy path. It costs approval. You may lose the comfort of fitting in, but what you gain is far more valuable: freedom and stamina. Living authentically means you no longer waste energy pretending, performing, or shrinking into roles that do not reflect who you truly are. That reclaimed energy fuels your journey, giving you the endurance to persist when others burn out chasing validation. Authenticity is not rebellion for its own sake. It is alignment. It is the decision to stop betraying yourself for acceptance and to start living in harmony with your own truth. And the impact of this choice ripples across every area of life, from relationships to work, because people sense when someone is grounded in their own identity and they trust it, even if they don't always agree with it. But authenticity alone is not enough. To move forward, you must also be willing to ask. Opportunity often stands just beyond the reach of silence, waiting for you to summon the courage to voice your need, your idea, or your request. Closed mouths miss open doors, and the world rarely hands things over without being prompted. This is where polite courage becomes a form of quiet power. It's not about demanding or forcing. It's about giving your intention a voice. Each time you ask, you plant a seed. Sometimes the answer is no, but even then, you've exercised a vital muscle, the willingness to advocate for yourself. And when the answer is yes, it compounds. Doors open, connections form, paths expand. The hidden truth is that those who seem lucky are often just those who dared to ask when others stayed silent. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you integrate pain transformed into strength, authenticity that grounds your identity, and the courage to ask, you begin to see how transformation is built not in giant leaps, but in these interconnected decisions. You start to recognize that your journey is not about waiting for permission or approval, but about shaping your own path through resilience, truth, and action. And this awareness changes everything. It shifts the way you carry yourself, the way you interact with others, and the way you respond to both challenges and opportunities. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, I choose authenticity. By declaring it, you remind yourself that freedom and strength are not found in pretending, but in living fully as who you are, scars, voice, and all. There is a subtle exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to please others. At first, it feels like a path to harmony, but the more you give in to the need for approval, the more you drain yourself. Pleasing multiplies fatigue, because it demands that you perform endlessly, bending your own truth just to fit into expectations that are rarely satisfied anyway. Listening, however, has the opposite effect. It multiplies knowledge. When you stop performing and start paying real attention, you discover insights that were hidden beneath the noise. You hear the unspoken needs in a conversation. You catch the lessons woven into someone else's story. You even begin to recognize the quiet signals within yourself. Listening is an act of presence, and presence is what allows you to learn, adapt, and grow without burning out in the endless cycle of trying to be everything for everyone. The hidden truth is that you gain far more by listening than you ever will by overextending yourself to please. But in the process of learning to listen, another revelation emerges: trust. It is easy to speak about trust as if it should be given freely, but genuine trust is earned over time. Words can charm, promises can persuade, but patterns, those repeated actions, are what reveal the truth. Trust built only on hope is fragile. Trust built on consistent evidence becomes unshakable. Strong bonds are tested bonds, and while that testing may feel uncomfortable, it is also what makes them real. Trust is not about perfection, but about reliability. The quiet certainty that someone's actions will align with their words, not just once, but repeatedly. This principle applies to others as much as it applies to yourself, your own. Self-trust grows when you begin to keep the promises you make to yourself, no matter how small they seem. Each time you follow through, you reinforce the foundation on which confidence and authenticity are built. And then comes an often overlooked pillar of strength: privacy. In a world that rewards constant exposure and oversharing, privacy is a hidden form of power. Sharing intentions too early can expose your dreams to doubt, envy, or discouragement before they've had a chance to root. Protecting your plans while they are still fragile allows them to grow without being trampled by premature opinions. Share outcomes, not intentions, because outcomes carry proof, while intentions carry vulnerability. This doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means recognizing the difference between what should be nurtured in silence and what is ready to face the light. Behind the scenes of every transformation lies this protective silence, where goals are shaped in private before they are celebrated in public. That silence is not emptiness, it is strategy, it is focus, it is the shield that guards your momentum. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you connect the discipline of listening, the reality of earned trust, and the strength of privacy, you begin to build a life that is anchored in clarity and resilience. You stop scattering your energy on constant performance. You stop placing blind faith in words without evidence, and you stop leaking your vision before it has the strength to withstand external pressure. The impact of this alignment is profound. You gain wisdom from listening, security from trust, and freedom from privacy. Together, they give you the stamina to walk your path with less noise, less distraction, and far more intention. If this resonates with you, write in the comments: privacy is power. By doing so, you not only affirm this truth for yourself, but also remind others that sometimes the strongest growth happens quietly, away from the spotlight, until the results speak louder than words ever could. Comparison is one of those traps that feels harmless at first. You glance at someone else's progress, their apparent success, and suddenly your own journey feels smaller. But comparison is a thief. It robs you of peace, of focus, of gratitude for the ground you've already covered. What it hides from you is the reality behind the scenes, the late nights, the struggles, the doubts that no one posts or celebrates. Everyone runs a different lap, on a different terrain, with different starting points, and the only real measure that matters is whether you are moving forward on your own path. Patience becomes your weapon in this fight. Long games are never won by speed alone. They reward consistency. The quiet persistence of someone who shows up day after day, even when applause is absent. Patience is not passive. It's active endurance, the choice to keep planting seeds long before the harvest shows. But patience without discipline quickly falls apart. Discipline is where self-trust is born, and it is built in the smallest of moments. Think of it like credit. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how minor it seems, you make a deposit. Over time, those deposits accumulate into confidence, resilience, and the assurance that you can rely on yourself. Break too many promises, and your self-trust erodes, leaving you doubtful and fragile. The hidden truth is that discipline is not about restriction, but about freedom, because when you trust yourself, you no longer waste energy on internal battles. You don't wonder if you'll follow through, you know you will. And that certainty is powerful, because it frees your mind to focus on growth instead of wrestling with hesitation. Discipline, then, is not punishment. It's alignment. It's the structure that allows your transformation to be sustainable. Still, even with patience and discipline, emotions inevitably enter the scene. They can surge like waves, sudden and overwhelming, and it's tempting to let them take control. But emotions, while real, are not meant to drive. They are signals, not steering wheels. The key is to feel them without handing them the power to decide your actions. When anger rises, name it. When fear creeps in, acknowledge it. When sadness lingers, give it space. By naming the feeling, you strip it of its mystery. By breathing through it, you calm the nervous system that fuels impulsive choices. And when you choose your action after that pause, you reclaim agency. This practice doesn't eliminate emotion. It integrates it, turning it from a controlling force into a source of information. The impact of this shift is profound. It allows you to remain steady in storms, intentional in decisions, and present in your journey without being pulled in every direction by temporary moods. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you weave together patience, discipline, and emotional intelligence, you start to see how they reinforce one another. Patience keeps you on your path when results are delayed. Discipline ensures you stay consistent even when no one is watching. And emotional awareness protects you from sabotaging yourself with impulsive decisions. Together, they form a mindset that is not easily shaken, a foundation strong enough to withstand both external pressures and internal doubts. This is where transformation moves from theory into lived reality, shaping not only what you achieve, but also who you become in the process. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I choose patience." By putting it into words, you remind yourself and show others that the long game belongs to those willing to trust the process, to honor their own commitments, and to let emotions inform rather than control. It is so easy to fall into the illusion that others are somehow more capable, more talented, or more destined for greatness than you are. We mythologize people, placing them on pedestals, imagining that they have access to something secret or unattainable. Yet behind the scenes, the truth is far less mystical. Those people we admire simply practiced longer, failed more times, and kept showing up when others gave up. The hidden truth is that your own results, once shaped by persistent effort, will speak louder than any story you've told yourself about being less capable. Transformation begins the moment you stop underestimating your potential and start realizing that the distance between you and those you admire is often just measured in hours of practice, not in destiny. When you shift your mindset in this way, envy dissolves into motivation, and comparison turns into fuel for your own journey. And as you step into that practice, luck itself begins to behave differently. We often describe luck as if it were a random windfall, something unpredictable and out of reach. But luck follows the worker. The more you prepare, the harder you train. The more consistently you move, the more often chance seems to find you. What looks like coincidence is often the result of readiness meeting opportunity. People from the outside may call it luck, but behind the curtain, it's hours of effort, persistence, and decisions that pave the way. The impact of this realization is liberating. You no longer wait for fortune to bless you. You create the conditions for fortune to notice you. When you embrace this, you see that luck is not passive. It is attracted to action. It's not about being chosen. It's about being prepared. But even as you work and grow, there's a delicate balance to be maintained. Too often, people place their entire sense of joy on the shoulders of one person, building their emotional foundation around a single presence. While love and connection are vital, centering your entire happiness on someone else makes your life fragile. If that person changes, leaves, or falters, the entire structure collapses. True joy comes from building a life that stands even if anyone leaves. This doesn't mean loving less. It means loving from abundance, not emptiness. When your sense of fulfillment comes from within, relationships become partnerships instead of lifelines, choices instead of dependencies. This is the hidden truth of love. It is stronger when it is not burdened with the responsibility of carrying your entire sense of worth. By cultivating your own foundation through your work, your growth, your inner peace, you Create a space where love is not clung to, but shared freely. That freedom deepens connection rather than diminishing it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you stop mythologizing others, when you understand the rhythm of luck, and when you root your joy in a foundation stronger than any single person, you begin to experience life with a different kind of clarity. The noise of doubt fades, the desperation for external validation weakens, and your choices begin to come from strength instead of scarcity. This is where transformation takes root, not in a single revelation, but in the consistent rewiring of how you see yourself, how you approach opportunity, and how you build joy that cannot be shaken by circumstance. If this speaks to you, write in the comments, "I choose abundance," by putting it into words. You remind yourself and show others that real strength and real joy come not from overestimating others or leaning entirely on someone else, but from building a life so grounded that love, opportunity, and growth can flow naturally through it. Avoiding problems never makes them smaller. It only allows them to grow in the dark. The more you push them aside, the more intimidating they become, like shadows lengthening at dusk. But the moment you decide to face them directly, something remarkable happens. The fear shrinks. The path forward reveals itself, and what once felt insurmountable becomes a challenge you can actually manage. Avoidance feeds illusions, while action exposes the hidden truth. Action is the light switch in a dark room. It doesn't erase what's there, but it allows you to see clearly enough to deal with it. And every time you choose courage over avoidance, you reinforce a mindset that refuses to be trapped in cycles of delay and denial. The impact is lasting because it teaches you that problems are rarely permanent walls. They are doors that open when you stop waiting and start turning the handle. But courage in facing problems is deeply tied to another element: self-reliance. The journey toward independence, physically, mentally, and financially, is not about isolating yourself from others, but about reducing avoidable suffering. When you train your body, you build resilience against exhaustion and illness. When you train your mind, you strengthen focus, creativity, and clarity, all of which help you navigate life's unexpected turns. When you train your financial skills, you create a buffer that grants freedom of choice instead of dependency. Each of these areas compounds into a kind of quiet power, the ability to stand firm, even when circumstances are unstable. Behind the scenes of confidence and freedom is this groundwork of self-reliance, built day by day with small but deliberate investments in health, knowledge, and stability. Transformation here is subtle but profound. It shifts you from being reactive to proactive, from being at the mercy of external forces to being anchored in your own. Preparation. Yet none of this matters if you wait endlessly for the perfect moment to begin. Perfection seduces us with the idea that once everything is aligned, then we can finally start. But life doesn't work that way. Motion, not perfection, is what generates progress. Action imperfect, messy, uncertain, is what opens the door to learning. Every draft you ship, every attempt you make, every iteration you release into the world teaches you more than endless planning ever could. Procrastination disguises itself as preparation, but the hidden truth is that it's fear dressed in productivity's clothing. The only way to dissolve it is through action. And as you act, you discover something powerful. Perfection is not a starting point. It's an illusion. Growth comes from the willingness to adjust, to refine, to keep moving forward while mistakes become lessons. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you combine the courage to face problems, the discipline of building, self-reliance, and the wisdom of choosing action over perfection, you create a momentum that becomes unstoppable. You no longer wait for life to hand you answers. You step into the uncertainty and create them. This mindset doesn't just move you forward. It transforms the way you see obstacles, the way you prepare, and the way you act even when the conditions aren't ideal. It's a quiet revolution that shifts your entire journey, proving that progress belongs not to the flawless, but to the brave. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "Action is my light," by putting it into words You affirm the decision to face challenges head on, to invest in yourself fully, and to choose movement over waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives. Rushing has become a habit in a world that celebrates speed over substance. But moving fast in the wrong direction only takes you further away from where you're meant to be. Direction always beats speed. A slow path, guided by clarity and purpose, will outperform a frantic race towards something misaligned. This is the hidden truth that many overlook. Progress is not about how quickly you move, but about whether you're moving toward the right destination. Checking your compass daily, through reflection, through honest self-assessment, keeps you aligned. And when you do this, you realize that it's not wasted time to pause, to correct, to choose carefully. In fact, it's one of the most powerful decisions you can make, because it ensures that every step, even the small ones, is part of a journey that actually matters. This awareness naturally leads to gratitude, because when you stop chasing speed for its own sake, you begin to notice what's already around you. Gratitude pulls you back into the present moment, grounding you in the reality that peace doesn't come from what you're chasing, but from recognizing what you already hold. The present is not just a pause on the way to the future. It is the groundwork of peace. Yes, the space where transformation truly begins. Gratitude shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from not enough to already meaningful. And the impact is profound, because once you learn to see what is good now, you stop living only for some future arrival point. You start experiencing the richness of today, which paradoxically gives you more energy and clarity to keep building tomorrow. Behind the scenes of resilience and joy, gratitude is always there, quietly weaving balance into the most chaotic seasons of life. Yet none of this holds if you continue to see yourself as a victim of circumstances. Responsibility is the turning point where transformation takes root. The moment you own your choices, the future becomes editable again. Victimhood convinces you that life happens to you, but responsibility reminds you that life also happens through you. This doesn't mean everything is within your control, but it does mean your responses always are. Owning your part, even in difficulty, unlocks power that blame and resentment can never provide. Responsibility is not about guilt, it's about agency. It's the mindset shift from I can't to I can decide how to move forward. And this shift changes everything. It brings clarity to decisions, strength to endure challenges, and momentum to create new outcomes. The hidden truth here is that the path of responsibility is the path of freedom. Because once you recognize your ability to choose, you no longer wait for permission to transform your life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when direction, gratitude, and responsibility come together, they create a foundation that no external force can shake. You walk with clarity instead of rushing blindly. You live with presence instead of postponing joy. And you take ownership instead of surrendering your future to circumstance. This combination is where mindset becomes transformation, not through dramatic gestures, but through quiet, consistent decisions that reshape your journey from the inside out. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, I choose responsibility. By declaring it, you remind yourself and show others that freedom doesn't come from waiting on life, but from choosing to steer it with gratitude, direction, and ownership. Resilience is often romanticized as an unshakable strength, but in truth, it's built in the raw and unglamorous moments when life knocks you down. Falling is inevitable. Rising is the choice. Each time you get back up, your roots deepen, your foundation strengthens, and your perspective widens. Setbacks are not just interruptions to your journey. They are seasons that carve growth rings into your character, the kind of invisible marks that shape who you are becoming. When everything feels heavy, resilience whispers a hidden truth. What breaks you open can also plant something new inside of you. And as those roots toughen in the soil of hardship, you begin to notice that resilience is not about pretending pain doesn't exist, but about using it to stand taller when the storm passes. Yet resilience alone is not enough. You are also the author of your own story, and stories are meant to be written, rewritten, and written again. Too many people stay stuck in old chapters, rereading the same pages of regret, anger, or nostalgia, as if clinging to them could somehow rewrite the past. But transformation happens when you close those chapters without bitterness and begin new ones with clarity, courage, and calm. Writing your story again and again doesn't mean erasing what came before. It means choosing not to let old lines define the entire book. Every decision you make, every risk you take, every perspective you shift adds new paragraphs to the unfolding narrative of your life. And what's most powerful is that the pen has always been in your hands, even in the moments you forgot you were holding it. Behind the scenes, resilience and authorship are deeply connected. Rising after a fall gives you material, wisdom, and experience to write from, while choosing to write again gives meaning to the resilience you've earned. Together, they reveal a hidden truth about transformation. It isn't linear, it isn't final, and it isn't perfect. It is cyclical. You fall, you rise, you rewrite. Each cycle makes you more aware of your strength, more conscious of your choices, and more intentional about your future. The impact of this realization is profound because it strips away the illusion that life must be flawless to be meaningful. Instead, it teaches you that meaning comes from motion, from courage, from turning the page even when you don't know what the next chapter will hold. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you truly embrace resilience and the power to rewrite, you start to see that life is not a single story carved in stone. It's a collection of drafts, each one richer than the last. You stop fearing failure because you understand it adds depth to your narrative. You stop clinging to old wounds because you know they don't define the ending. And you stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin because you realize the story is already in motion and you are free to shape it with every decision you make. This is the hidden architecture of transformation, the understanding that you are not only surviving your journey, but constantly authoring it. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, I rise and rewrite. By putting it into words, you remind yourself and show others that no setback is final, no chapter is permanent, and the story of your life is always in your hands, ready to be reshaped with resilience and renewed vision. If you've walked with me all the way to this point, you already know how powerful these reflections can be when we bring them into our daily lives. So if this journey spoke to you, make sure you're subscribed. That way you won't miss the next insights we'll share here together. And if you're one of those who stayed with me until the very end, I'd love to know. Leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end. It's always special to see who connects with the message all the way through. Don't forget to leave a like as well. It's a simple way to show that what we've been building here resonates with you. And if you're ready to keep going, there's a video right here that beautifully complements what we've just explored. Click and continue with me over there.